Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, guys. How are we doing today?
All is well. How are you, Miss Bullard?
Nobody out there? Anybody out there?
Hello, you can hear me?
Hi, good afternoon, guys. How are we doing today? Hello.
Good afternoon, all is well.
Okay, I thought nobody's out there. I see only four persons on, and that's actually only two. So what we'll do is we'll give everybody 5 minutes to join. Okay. Okay, LaShonda, I see you say your mic is not working. Okay, so let's give them a few minutes to join. Let's try get up to 10 persons, and then we'll start to about 1:05. Now, Lashana, next week, make sure you have a working mic so you can get your participation points and share with the newspaper and stuff, okay? So try next week to get a working microphone. Hi, Sasha, how are you? We're just giving everybody 5 minutes to join.
I'm good. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Okay, and then we'll start. So probably at 1:05.
Okay.
Okay.
Someone said that they aren't able to make it to class today. Indira and Demetria, they said that they have funerals today.
Okay, that's fine because it's going to be recorded, and so they can just listen to the recording.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. How are you today?
I'm good. I just switching off the laptop.
Oh.
That the mic on that wasn't working. That's fine. But I'm here.
Okay, great. We're just giving everybody about 5 minutes to join. Okay, guys, it's 1:05. Well, it's being recorded. It's only 4 of you here, but you know, it's the weekend. We had some big concerts last night. People might still be recuperating from those, so we'll give them a chance to get enough rest and get into class.
I thought I would have seen you out there last night.
Shan, I was teasing all day. I was teasing all day. I said, put the Dexter songs on, put the Dexter songs on, but I was just teasing. No, I passed that time in my life now. I leave that for your young people. But it was, we had good jokes offered yesterday. So you had a good time? How was it? I seen nothing on social media.
Many things on social media, but I didn't go.
Oh, okay.
I didn't go.
I must be in the wrong groups, right? Yes, Miss Bullet trying to read the news and hoping something pop up, right? To have some jokes, but Miss Bullet ain't had no jokes for the morning yet. So hopefully later on. Later on. Okay, so welcome guys, and I trust that y'all having a good weekend and had the opportunity to read the newspaper after that long holiday weekend. We should have had at least one chance to read the newspaper and hopefully share. The time is winding down on us now. We're in week 4, and week 4 is gonna turn into the next 4 weeks all about risk. So chapter 4, 5, 6, and 7 all deal with this risk-based approach. And we touched on it in intro. And hopefully some of you would have left intro with a basic understanding. And so we are just gonna, dive a little deeper and ensure that everybody understands what this risk-based approach is all about and how it works. So we looked at the Basel Committee in intro. We'll look at it a little deeper. We'll look at the risk assessment for the Bahamas. There's also surveys that come out from the regulator. We look at some of those surveys and see if we can answer some of the questions. And by the end of the next 4 weeks, we should fully understand this risk-based approach and how it works. So of course, we know on the final exam, there'll be 8 or 10 choices. You have to answer 4 questions. There are 4 chapters on risk. Of course, there's going to be at least 2 to 3 questions on risk, right? And so we want to ensure that we leave with a basic understanding and the ability to be able to at least answer 1 question on risk. Okay? Y'all there? Y'all have to talk back to me now. It's only 4 y'all. Y'all be
Yes,
y'all gotta
ma'am.
talk to me.
Yes,
ma'am.
we're here. Yes.
Okay, good. So anybody read the newspaper and want to share? Or any
Miss-
questions from the homework?
I have something to share. This is Taniqua.
Okay, go ahead.
So I didn't get a chance to read the newspaper, right? But I saw something on social media that I thought was interesting. It's in relation to, I'm not sure if everybody here is familiar with the reality show stars Todd and his wife Chris Lee.
Yes,
they have
we
a
are.
reality they have a reality show, both he and his wife, and I guess his entire family's on the show. But recently it was posted that they've both been found guilty on charges of or on counts of bank fraud and tax evasion. And I think, forgive me, I'm driving, so I'm trying to remember everything that I read on this story. And I think it was up to 30 million that they were found to have defrauded the community banks of. It seems as though that they were they were defrauding the smaller banks so that they could get a loan approved at a bigger bank. And then I think they were hiding like about $500,000 in taxes. And one of them, I think the husband, they said owed taxes from 2009. And so now they're both being charged with fraud and tax evasion. And I found that to be quite interesting because they're facing up to about 30 years in prison now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. But from this reality series, They normally, like, you can go on and Google and see how much they make an episode. They should be making at least 50,000.
Yeah, it said that they were trying to increase their net worth as well. I don't know how that works. But they said that they did mention that in the passage, the thing that I read, they said that they were trying to, it was in the process of them trying to borrow from the smaller banks to go to the larger banks or whatever that is they were trying to do. They were trying to increase their net worth. So I don't know, but they're both now facing up to 30 years in prison. And I used to like them. I thought they were such a cool family, you know, the grandmother and all the children and stuff. But yeah,
Right.
they
But
may go to
I
jail.
saw, yeah, the news clipping that I with that talked about him having an affair though, and then tax evasion. So I thought it was just a joke. I really didn't take it seriously, so I didn't read it any further. But they said that he was having an affair and it was with a man, and then they said, and he was being charged with tax evasion. That was the clip that I said. So I say this is just because, you know, he is very feminine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
so
he
they
is.
said he's finally coming out, and so I say this must be the Inquirer or what have you. And then they had the tax evasion to the side, so I just bypassed it because I really thought it was a joke. So
Oh, they're
surprised.
giving figures now. They're giving figures and time frames and dates and stuff. So I don't know. So I guess it's getting real serious for them right about now.
Right. And let me tell you, for years, we always, you know, heard stories about the IRS, you know, hitting persons very hard. Like, you don't defraud Uncle Sam and think that you're going to get away with it. But 30 years,
Yeah.
that's a lot. And then remember, I don't know if I told you all the story about my client. The bank I was working to was shutting down. The day before we finally closed that doors, the IRS said, send us $6 million. And I even fell on the floor for him. He had $10 million. He got 4. The IRS.
Yes, you told us
6.
about this
Yes.
last class. You did.
Yes.
You did.
Yeah,
You did
so
mention it.
they are not playing with their tax dollars. And of course, like I said, they spent $18 million to upgrade the IRS just to be able to accept, you know, information on taxes. So they're not playing around with that.
I have a question, like with the IRS and cases like this. Would they try to make a deal per se, like if the person can pay half or a percentage of the taxes back as opposed to them going to jail, or do they just, this is just a penalty, you just go to jail? I mean,
no, sometimes it's you just go to jail, and sometimes it's a penalty depending on how much money you still have. But when it's to this point, this means that they've already worked with the person. This, like you say, all the way back to 2009, they would have been sending him notices, offering him deals, saying we'll give you 50% off, to, you know, all sorts of initiatives that he completely just threw to the side. And so finally they hit you hard. And so I don't even think they're that lenient with all the way back to 2009 any longer. Right?
Wow.
So, yeah. Yeah. So it's yeah, a lot of people, it's millions of dollars in tax dollars that they tried not to pay over the years. And one by one, they're going to go after them. Now, I don't think they want to put anybody in jail, because if you're in jail, you know, you should stop making money and the government won't get paid. So I think they will find a way to make you pay that money, and then you'll be okay. But the amount that they owe probably far exceeds their net worth. So that's probably why they are, you know, saying 30 years off the back, because they probably broke. Yeah. Okay. So very good. Very good. Thank you for sharing. Very interesting. Anybody else?
Hi.
Okay, this is Sasha.
Oh,
Okay, go.
sorry.
Go ahead, Tasha.
Okay, so I don't know if this would hold any substance, because I know this would have branched off from last week, where because of inflation, the supermarket said that they would be decreasing costs on a lot of items like Solomon's and stuff. However, Rupert's donor Super Value, he said that consumers won't see changes in price until about a month later, even though the government has lowered the customs duty on certain items. So I feel as though like he also blamed it on inflation around the world and the war between Ukraine and Russia. But personally, I feel as though he's just being greedy. And I feel like this is where price control should step in. Because at this point, I feel like he's just exploiting people. Because if everyone else could do it, like why we have to wait for a month for him to do it?
But okay, let's just think
His
about
inventory.
it. Yeah, he has that
His
inventory in that he is
yeah.
already paid for. And he has to have at least 6 months worth of inventory in because he is the number one provider, the food source in the entire country. So he already paid duty on all of that stuff was sitting up in his warehouse. And so he can't reduce. But on the other hand, you would say, my God, Mr. Roberts, you don't make billions of dollars off the Bahamian people.
Yeah.
And it's
And
been a
that's my
pandemic
closest
and we
food store,
suffering.
so I can feel it.
Right. And no matter what, he never loses. He always wins. So even if he take the little 50 cents off or what have you, it would be his give back to the people. That's if in for good reputation and goodwill. That's what he should say. I have this amount of inventory. I've already paid duty, but I will, follow suit. But it depends on the person.
That means
He's
for
a
the rest of
businessman.
us shopping somewhere else.
Where, Sasha? Not the fresh market. That's the only other choice. Where
I
else
have
would
to
you
go to
shop?
I have
Budget?
to go to the market.
Where's
I
that?
think
I
I
said
think-
another fresh market.
Now, Sasha, you've been in fresh market. You
I
won't
know.
think
You
I
don't
think
wanna go there
Rupert
for
said he
nothing.
ready to give back.
Give back to
Rupert?
what we give back.
He gives back in stamps. So he been doing those stamps long time. Solomon's, I think, just trying to get a loyalty card, but he has been doing stamps for years. So he still gives back in that regard because you could go to the grocery store with probably $50 worth of those.
Yeah, and that's what I do. I keep all my stamps till like Christmas or Easter or and I have like $50 or $60 and I'd be so happy. I'd be like, yes, I finally get a discount, right? Yeah, so I guess that's reasonable, Chandler. But still, his 10th generation as a billionaire for the Bahamian people. He still can reduce, but Fresh Market and Solomon's, to me, they already too expensive. So they really needed the decrease in any event.
Yeah, you're paying
It's
for
so
that
expensive.
ambiance when you walk
Yeah.
inside because in
Yeah.
there it's so beautiful.
Yes, and the availability of fresh fruits and whatever, they always have it. So you're paying for that. That costs a little extra. Yeah. But Rupert could give back after all these years. He could do something. Okay, so very good. Guys, I don't know if you realize that the first homework that I have encouraged everybody to complete, because 99% chance that this is the mandatory question on the final exam, is due this Friday coming up. Okay, so please, you may not have looked at the instruction sheet for a while, because it's been 4 weeks, but please take heed, look at that question, start to read the topics at the back under the admin group. What is our topic for this year? For this semester? Anybody know? Anybody remember?
Your question?
What is our topic from the admin group for our first homework?
To discuss the methods and techniques used
Under
as it
what,
relates to
what type of crime?
human trafficking, pornography, and I think drug trafficking, if I
Kidnapping.
remember correctly.
Right.
Kidnapping, yes.
Kidnapping. Okay, yeah, very good. And as you do your research online, just remember the mandatory question is 20 points. As you do your research, I think it's 70,000 Black women in America are missing. Okay, so I want you to pay attention to that. Then there's a case out of the UK where they've stopped a truck, a 45-foot container truck, and it had 39 Chinese nationals or Asian nationals in that. Now, some people had said they were missing organs, and then some people said that was just a myth. So as you do your investigation, you know, look into that. And I'd like your papers to reflect what is happening in America. Why are 70,000 Black women missing? What happened with those Asians? Also, what's happening right here in the Bahamas? Right? We're the strip clubs are up and running, but they're illegal, right? So we have a black market for the strip clubs. Human trafficking. We had a immigration officer in, where was it, Andres, and his girlfriend killed and placed in shallow graves. And person said that was because he was supposed to get 8 Chinese to America and they never made it. So they went after him and his girlfriend intercepted. So you could perhaps look at that case. And then just recently, but this one was related to drug trafficking. Just last week, 31 Chinese at the port arrested for a big bus drug deal. Are they legal? How did they get here? What do they work at the port? How did they get in the Bahamas? Right? So we want to find out to see if anything is related to human trafficking, pornography, or what is it? Kidnapping. Yes. Okay, because we know there's an underworld. And remember, I said I had a person in the class who says, I work in one of the major casinos. 2 o'clock in the morning, these girls are not, you know, the big gamblers are there. These girls are not coherent. What's happening? Okay, so we want to, hopefully our papers could reveal what's happening in America, in the UK, and definitely in the Bahamas, because of course, you see the trend with the papers are going to say something about the Bahamas, and does this happen here? So do your research. So upfront, you know, you will have that out of the way, and then you could just focus on your other 4 questions that you need to answer. And like I said earlier, the next 4 chapters are about risk. So you can either decide to stay completely away from it, but please don't leave after the last chapter without a basic understanding of risk, this risk-based approach and what it means. Okay? Okay, anybody else?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good.
You say I could share?
Yes, go ahead.
Well, I noticed that the Inland Revenue Director, I think she's the director, Chandra Strawn, they are going to aggressively pursue the 800 million arrests, and those real property tax arrests that are not attached to a mortgage will be sent over to a debt collection agency. I was just thinking that they probably trying to go this route rather than raising taxes on the Bahamian people again. Like, so they're trying to focus on what is already owed to them.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Okay, that makes sense, because we were saying, you know, they wrote in the newspaper too that they had collected so much for the year. And I wanted them to distinguish, was that from the arrears or was that from the new conveyances or the new, you know what I mean, the new transfers? Because of course, when you can't transfer without paying the real property tax, like if somebody dies or if you sell a property, that's the only time they really collect it.
Yes,
You know, it's not collected. So they wrote an article this week saying that they collected
2 billion.
In the first 4 months of the year, something to that effect. But was that a rest? I
Well, they saying they got a VAT boost of 2 million from real estate purchases. So persons would have had to purchase property.
Right, so that's new. That's new. And it's no way to avoid it because you're going through legal work when that happens. So they would have collected that anyway.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So that's why I say you have to read to make sure, is this the arrears? The focus is, there's 700 million in arrears. You collect any of that? You know, that's what the focus is. But like I say, they've always used that as a campaign tactic. Now, election ain't for another 3 years, but trust me, the people ain't gonna forget that the same tactic that they always use that the PLP forced them to pay. We can see what happens.
Yes, and it's quite
Right
a
after a pandemic.
and then that's another thing they're looking to add fees, additional fees onto to getting the res. So if I can't pay $1, you think I could pay two?
Right, and some a tax that we haven't paid for 20 years. I mean, the average Bahamian probably owes for at least 10 years. So do you really expect them to pay for 10 years? Like really, like how? You know, you really expect them to get a lump sum onto their mortgage? These people, the PLP will never come back in power if they do it. But anyway, and the PLP, you know, they more people centered, you know, rather than economically they driven. So I'd be surprised if I see it coming from them. But like you said, they have to do something because VAT has to raise. And like you said, this could be their tactic so they don't raise VAT because
Yeah.
they could say to the international regulators, well, look, we put a big payment onto our deficit. And so, you know,
Yeah.
do we truly have to do it now? So they're probably trying to be strategic, which makes sense. But
Yes.
let's see what happens. They're not good at these type of things, so I'd be very surprised. But let's see. Let's
Yeah.
see. Be hopeful. Be hopeful.
Yes,
We'll give
ma'am.
them the benefit of the doubt. And hope that it don't end up being reduced back for 1 year and then like this bread basket items fiasco that is not what he said he would do. But let's see.
Yeah.
Be hopeful. Okay, good.
Yes,
Very
ma'am.
good. Yeah, keep abreast of it. I am really interested to see how it will turn out and what would really happen. Okay, because like I said, under when it was when Perry Christie was the prime minister, a person who was a CEO at one of the largest accounting firms in the Bahamas, like say Deloitte or KPMG, he was saying, please, his real property tax was $300,000. And he was saying, Perry Christie was saying, please raise that. So if persons who was a CEO for 25 years and now falling on hard times, and that's what we should feel sorry for. But I don't know. You can't make the poor people pay if the big boys ain't pay. So that could be another thing. Let's see that. But remember, only poor people is go to jail, only poor people is pay bills. So we'll see what happens.
Agreed.
Yeah, we'll see who get the waivers and who have to pay. We'll see. Okay, guys, very, very good. Very good. So don't forget the homework is due for Friday. And also don't remember now we're at week 4. Next week we'll be halfway through. That means start to get your points in for your civic organization. There's a deadline. Please look at the sheet. Anybody know the deadline to get your 5%? Anybody know the date?
Friday. You talking about Friday? No, Friday's the homework.
Yeah,
So
Friday.
the deadline is the week before our last class.
That's right, it is. So please don't come to the last class saying, oh, Miss Bullet, I forget. Don't do like how my class last night did. Oh, Miss Bullet, I attended a meeting, but I didn't stay for the whole meeting. And this was it, like nothing, just trying to get the 5%. No, please come with valid information, whatever is discussed in the meeting, and that you participated. There's no, it's a bonus. So you don't get a bonus if you only stay for half of the meeting or you reach late or you can't remember nothing about it, please. And we had people who was saying there's Dr. So-and-so doing that last night, so stop it. Okay, please, you have sufficient time to get your points in. Please do your part. Okay. Okay, good. Any more questions or concerns? We're looking at the classwork. Do you have any questions? We can answer all those questions. They pass exam questions, so if we having any difficulties, this is the time to let's discuss it. No, y'all had a big holiday weekend. Y'all just party. Y'all even think with this bullet. Or no homework or no classwork. What about you, Jamal? How you doing today?
Afternoon, everybody. I'm doing well.
Okay, you had a chance to look at the classwork or the homework?
I answered the first and the second one, I haven't gotten to the third and the fourth one yet.
Okay, okay, but don't get left behind now because we're on chapter 4 now. And so make sure you fully understand how to answer those questions going into the exam because they could be repeat questions, you never know. Okay,
Yes,
because
ma'am.
they're all off past exam papers. So
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
Miss Bullard,
Go ahead.
are you talking about the question that refers to risk management for chapter 4 and 5, where it says discuss the steps?
I'm talking about the classwork, all of the classwork.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, make sure you can answer by the end of these, 4 chapters that you can answer those questions on risk, on chapter 1, on chapter 2, on chapter 3. Okay, if you're confused by the questions, that's what I'm saying. In the first half an hour of class, I want to say, well, I don't even know what this question asking me, or I want to make sure that I identify the points leaving out of the chapter.
Well, I
Okay?
do have a question as
Go
it
ahead.
relates to chapter 3 and the question that talks about the sanctioned countries being able to receive assistance during COVID-19. So
Okay.
when I was reading up or trying to do a little research on that, I did see something that talked about, I'm trying to find where I wrote my information now, that talked about, I guess it's like the United Nations humanitarian trade that allowed countries that were sanctioned by the US to receive assistance during COVID-19. It talked about, okay, so I have in April 16, 2020, the OFAC, which is the Office of Foreign Assets Control, issued a fact sheet. And it talked about the regulatory guidance and exceptions that allowed the humanitarian related trade with countries and territories subject to US sanctions. So is that still something that's happening today, or is this like,
I don't know.
what did it apply to?
Let me just tell you what happened during the pandemic.
Okay.
Well, of course, the US has Cuba and Venezuela sanctioned, right? And so all of those countries, and Iran, and so all of those countries went to the UN, of course, and I guess that's when the UN came out and said, well, you can't stop the PPE and you can't stop any vaccinations or anything from going to those countries. And so what happened was China stepped in and helped Venezuela, and they sent them aid. Cuba also got aid from Europe and from China. Cuba then in return sent 50 doctors into, was it France? I think it was into France, because at that time, people were dropping down left, right, and center, and that was at the height of the pandemic. I mean, there had people outside the hospital in France. So they sent 50 Cuban doctors to France. The Bahamas used Bahamas Air Flight to send some Cuban doctors to Dominica. And then in terms of Iran tried to borrow money from the IMF and the World Bank, and the US blocked that. So the UK loaned 500,000 euros to Iran to be able to get PPE equipment and vaccinations and whatever they needed for their people. So those were 3 things. So Iran getting help from the UK, Cuba and Venezuela getting help from China, and then Cuba in return helping by sending doctors to France. Okay, so if you Google some of that, what should come up and you should be able to get some points. And that was a question on the exam during the pandemic, because it was in the news every day, and we were watching it, and we had some clips.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Good. And see, ask, because you never know, it could pop up again. So ask. So if you, like I said, if you don't know, like I say, the sanctions questions are very easy to answer. Okay, so are the tax questions. Almost 100% of the class answers the tax question, and the other half answers the sanction question. So right there, very easy points to get, and full points. Most persons get full points on those two questions. Okay. And then, so let's throw a risk in there so we can make sure that we fully understand what we need to do. Okay, good. Any other questions? No? Okay, good, guys. Don't let the time run upon us. Okay, so chapter 4, the first chapter on risk, similar to what we learned in intro. And again, because this is similar to what we learned in intro, should have read this chapter, should be able to talk back to me and tell me what we know about this risk-based approach and what do we remember? What do we know? Should I go down the list? Dominique, what do you know about this risk-based approach? How comfortable are you with risk?
So with the risk, I understand it to be about the appetite and what the company is willing to accept in a way
Okay.
as they go about doing business, you know, taking into consideration the loss and the reputation to the company.
Okay, okay, good, very good, very good. Okay, and so there's a risk framework, and this all starts from, of course, we know by now, recommendation 1. Countries should assess their risks. Once they assess the risk, they should put controls in place to mitigate that risk. We cannot eliminate risk. We can put controls in place to mitigate the risk, to decrease it, to ensure that if our institutions are infiltrated, there are some stops that they can only go so far. Okay, so if countries must do it, then companies must do it. Okay, and because each company would make up the entire I guess industry, the financial service industry in the Bahamas, which of course we know the regulators are the central bank for the banks, the gaming board for the casinos, as well as the Island Lux and the Bahama Games or whatever else it did. Then the insurance commission, all the insurance companies, the compliance commission, the broker dealers, the accountants, the law firms, the real estate. And these are the ones that have a corporate service providers arm or a financial service providers arm. Not the criminal lawyer who defending the murderers each day. Not the small rinky-dinky accounting firms, the big KPMGs and the Deloitte and Touches. That's the compliance commission. And then who else did I miss anybody else? The financial services sector, gaming board, compliance commission, the securities commission, all other broker dealers. Yeah. The insurance commission. And who else? Insurance, banks, gaming.
Central bank.
Compliance, yeah. So the central bank is the regulator for the banks. Okay, so all of those institutions that fall under the central bank are called supervised institutions. So that includes the credit unions. All the gaming houses fall under the gaming board, supervised financial institution. All the insurance companies, supervised financial institutions. Okay, and all of that make up the financial services sector in the Bahamas. And so essentially that's what recommendation 1 is saying. The entire financial services sector, we want a risk-based approach. And I said in intro that it used to be rules-based, which meant, you know, we give you a questionnaire, you tick the box and you say yes or no. But we found out that, you know, that was like a one-size-fits-all approach. And that didn't necessarily give important data or information that we needed to fulfill this risk, this risk-based approach. So we changed from the rules-based to the risk-based, and the risk-based is tailored to your institution based on the number of customers you have and the products and services that you offer. Because you could have the same products and services with 100 customers, and then you could have the same products and service with 1,000 customers. So it really depends on the metrics of your organization. Okay, and so once you would have compiled all this information, what they want as from the country as a whole, so all the banks will send in their information to the central bank. Okay, and at the end of the day, you would end up with a national risk assessment. Okay, and so this is our national risk assessment. Let's look at the date. And I'm sure I told you all the story in intro where we tried to open up the account in New York. We take our trading desk there to avoid paying $100,000. We were denied because the perception out there in the financial world is that the Bahamas is a high-risk country, right? And so therefore, in 2020, the risk assessment from 215 does not count, right? And so I said, we're not high risk, we're medium high. And they say, show us that, right? And so, of course, I went here and I showed them the Bahamas. Can everybody see the screen?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said, look, see, we are 6.46. That is just like 6.5 medium high. And what did they say? You got this rating in 2050 and in 2060. So this is 2020. That does not count. We need at least, we'll take a 219 rating, but we won't take a 250 and 216 rating. Okay. And so let's just look at this national risk assessment. Back in 250 and 216, and we can see how deficient it was. This is the table of contents for an entire country. Okay, 35 pages? I think not. This doesn't even have, it says financial sector. At this point, these designated non-financial businesses were not even regulated. And that's what the accounting firms, the law firms, and the real estates refer to. Okay. And so for the Bahamas, you would say, well, we are a very small nation, but this did not, give a proper, I guess, picture of, the entire financial services sector. And at this time, we were still deficient in the 22, we were probably deficient in all. Back in 250 and 260, we were deficient probably in all of those 40 recommendations. A couple of them were in place, but not in its entirety. There were loopholes in a lot of our laws. And of course, we know we repealed and replaced and updated the laws in 2018 to ensure that we have sound laws in place and to become, I think we're largely compliant in 30 and partially compliant in 10. Okay, and so this is essentially what recommendation 1 says. Assess your risk, document it, put controls in place to mitigate the risk against in your country and then in each individual institution. Okay, and we were following in our other classes. There's an update to this risk assessment where they're saying it's complete. It was supposed to be submitted to the committee in March of 20, was it? Yeah, this year. But I don't see it. I don't see any indication of it being completed. And plus the F&M government had said that when they did an update. However, yeah, I don't see it, and I've been asking around, and nobody can confirm that it has been, submitted, whether or not it's been submitted or not. Okay, and so with this risk-based approach, the risk framework, of course, like Dominique started, is threefold. It's risk appetite, and by now all of us should know what risk appetite is. And I always say, do we want pizza or do we want chicken? Are we gonna do business with
We could have
Russia?
both.
Or just, okay, so then we have both. And the important thing is just to document it and to document that properly. Because in my auditing life, what I've experienced is we went into institutions where they say, I want Kentucky, I don't want pizza. But when we look, the staff sitting down eating pizza, right? So of course they got an audit note because they were operating outside of their risk appetite. And so this is what they said: we don't have an appetite for pets. So when I looked through their books, I didn't expect to see any PEP accounts. And so here it is, I'm auditing them, and I said, send me your customer list. So they had about 1,500 customers. So I just did an initial scan. And then I put in Excel government. But my Lord, why 5 different, the government of Angola, the government of Antigua, the government. So I said, can you see that this says you don't have a risk appetite for pets? They said, we don't. I said, but how do you have 5 government accounts? How? If you don't have an appetite for pets, okay? So you wanna be very careful with that risk appetite. Whatever you say in your appetite is what you have to actually do in real life. And a lot of people or a lot of organizations would have written their risk appetite 20 years ago and never updated, just like they never update forms and they never update policy, okay? So that's the first thing. You wanna ensure that your plans are sound, they're strategic, and they make sense. Because if you say you don't have an appetite for something, you can't have Shane Gibson and Perry Christie on your books, okay? And a lot of companies are doing that. I don't know how they are categorizing these accounts, but that's very important. You have to categorize the accounts properly, okay? So like I said, the risk framework is threefold: is risk appetite, risk assessment, and then risk rating, okay? And we looked at, this is how countries are risk rated. And I think when we get to chapter 7, we'll see how customers are risk rated, okay? So it starts with the country being risk rated, then it goes on to the company being risk rated by the regulator, and then of course the clients being risk rated. But of course, if your client base is primarily high risk, then your company has to be primarily high risk, right? And of course, nobody wants their company to be high risk because they will be subjected to what, Mariko? Sasha?
Hello?
Hi, y'all listening to me? Y'all ain't talking back to me. If your company, your client base is primarily high risk, and then your company is high risk, you will be subjected to what type of due diligence?
Enhanced due diligence.
Right,
Enhanced.
correct. Okay, correct. So no company wants to be subjected to that because, of course, their fees will increase. They will have to be reviewed annually. And now they are trying to put audits in line with your risk rating. So of course, we know when auditors come in, they take up 3 months and they take over your entire life. Can you imagine audit coming in every year because your company is high risk? Okay, so the regulators are trying to set that up right now to enforce that. However, it's not in total force right now, but you don't want to be, no company wants to be risk rated high risk to have to be audited each year, okay? So that framework has to be approved and that goes into your regulator. This is our appetite. These are our products and service and we would have assessed them. This is how we risk rate our clients, okay? The regulator then approves that and then they come in and check, is this really what you're doing, okay? And like I said, we went in and they had PEPs. We started from the risk appetite, we was writing them up. And we continued writing them up all the way through, like that bank actually shut down now, right? And so you want to be careful what you write in policy, even if it's 99 pages, that it's what you're actually doing and that it makes sense. Okay. Another common problem that institutions have is they write into policy what they consider undesirable accounts. Okay. And so in that clause, they say, we consider anybody that's been charged, okay, an undesirable account. Now, Shane Gibson has been charged, right? He has been acquitted, he won his case, but they said anybody who's been charged. So everybody in their portfolio who has been charged, we write them up for, okay? Because we say, let's see where what you did when you found out this person was charged, because your policy says you should not even have this account on your books. However, you have it on your books. We don't see any documentation on file. We don't see, you know, you action in this. So then you get another audit note. Okay. And I don't know if you understand how audit notes work. Once you get too many audit notes, somebody has to go home. You may get a fine. Okay. Somebody definitely has to go to class. And that department then goes on increased controls. Okay. So you want to ensure that whatever your policy says, it's what you're doing. Okay. And you
I
do,
don't-
sorry, go ahead.
So with Shane Gibson, I don't think any of his accounts got closed.
Okay, then so your policy must not say anybody who is charged. Your policy may say anybody who is in prison, but there has to be a section on what you consider an undesirable account or persons or jurisdictions you would not do business with. Okay, so you need to look at your AML policy, and if they are sharing the appetite of the business, then look at that as well. Because like I say, a lot of times we write these stuff, we just don't do it.
I noticed at work, they would do it to the small man quicker.
Of course.
Yeah.
Poor people, only poor people, I tell you all.
Yeah,
Get your 5 revenue streams in order.
Because
Okay.
I opened an account for, I can't even remember. I think it was in reference to the NIB scam. And one of the persons just recently got an account and we had to close it right back. And then the person, I think he got acquitted or whatever, his whatever charges were dropped, but we still didn't want to do business with him.
Okay. Okay. But all of that has to be documented in your policy, right? And you must have an escalation process so nobody could say that you discriminated or use a PLP or use a FNM. Let's look at Chase and his mother. Chase was already out on bail for defrauding BPL, right? He still had an account at Royal Bank that was able to do more fraud. So even if they don't have that in their appetite and they kept Chase's account open, should that not have been scrutinized, or shouldn't he have been high risk or something, because we already know this person out on bail for teasing?
Agreed.
You know, and so this is this risk-based approach. This is what we do once we know you're already out on bail, because we are supposed to be following the court list, the court clause list, world check, sanctions list. Okay, we ain't necessarily close out your account, but you should be subjected to enhanced due diligence or increased monitoring. And even if we don't change your account to high risk, we should compliance have some waiver there to say, can you let compliance sign on all transactions, please? Right? Because we already know the person out on bail for something similar. So make sure all your lists, somebody is checking them every day. A lot of times, that's just it. We never know. We don't read the newspaper. We don't know our customers. Compliance sometimes knows the customers better than the account officer. And then we have the checkers checking the checker. Everything is compliance, no verification department. So instead of 4 eyes, there's only 2.
I think that's a very important point because, like you said, the compliance, it's sad, but sometimes the compliance department do know the customers better than the CROs. And it's almost like we press and ask for more information because we know that we have to follow the legislative laws and so that we don't get fined. And then sometimes they don't want to ask the clients for certain information because they feel as though they are pressing on them too hard. And then
Right.
these are the big clients who want to be secret. I mean, who want to like be more discreet, but certain things we need.
Right, right. And so it's
But
all about
another thing,
the
sorry,
culture.
what I noticed too is some persons are just placed in roles and not actually earn the role to
And
really learn the role. So
friends, lovers, and families. Really, this is
yes, so that is why you will have a lot of persons who could scale in because the person who's serving don't know what they're doing. And that's why compliance have to go back to them because they should have known.
yeah, friends, lovers, and family. And I tell, a lot of us out there, please at least go to a class and get trained. Please, if you don't qualify for the position, gone are the days when, they'll slap on the wrist. Please go at least get the training. I have people sitting up on boards. Oh, Miss Bullet, I'm Dr. So-and-so on this board. And you an intro? I said, I'll see you in ICA. Oh, no, I don't have time for that. I say, really? Really? Okay. But anyway, and then I can understand. I said, so how long have you been in the financial services sector? Oh, I'm a teacher. I taught at government high. And you're on a financial board and you only want to do intro? Okay, so yeah. Anyway, time winding down for them type of people. It's one thing that somebody give you a little, your party might be in power and they give you a little, bly or whatever you call it. But please educate yourself. And the scammers know this. Okay? And they take advantage of you. So be very careful. Gone are the days, like I say. And if you don't have no money, definitely get in class, educate yourself, and get some awareness. Go to all the trainings, all the attorney general briefings and everything. And you still only can mitigate. You can't eliminate. But God help when you're sitting up on that board and that company is infiltrated and they pull your CV to see that you only do intro. Okay, so don't wait till these things bite you. Because the party ain't gonna be in power too long. Don't look so. Okay, so protect yourself. Okay, so we understand where we are at with our country. Another important thing is, of course, when we send this information into the regulators, we want to know how we are going to be rated, and this is always important because we have a lot of, and we'll see this when we get to our risk rating, we don't understand our methodology. We don't understand, and we can't even explain it. And so as compliance officers, we are responsible for the risk rating policy and procedure, not to carry out the risk rating, because again, that should be at the front line. And what I wanted to say to Sasha is, Sasha, a lot of those salespersons, they are on a commission. Okay, some of them only get paid commission, and so all they know is this account need to open and it need to stay open.
Miss Bullock,
And yes,
hello,
hi, I can hear you.
hello,
Hi, you can hear me, Sasha?
hello.
Dominique, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Oh, okay, so
Yes.
y'all could hear me the whole time?
Yes,
Yes, we could
Yeah,
have heard
okay.
him.
Yeah. Okay. So Sasha, yeah, what I'm saying is a lot of those persons are on commission. And so therefore, if that account does not open, they don't get paid. Okay. Or they don't get bonuses. And so, of course, they don't want you to pressure the customer. The offshore world is very competitive, very hard to get and maintain those clients. And so it's all through training and the culture of the organization. You have to push training, you have to push culture to say, listen, we don't want to hamper the ease of doing business, but this is what's required. And a lot of things you have to go just in the background and do your research So you don't, you know, you have to strike a balance, because if they don't bring in customers, then there's no need for compliance. So don't, it's easy to start a war and look like you in opposition, right? But strike a balance between ensuring that the culture of the organization, when we get to chapter 10, we'll talk more about the culture and ethics and what have you. You know, just through training, you train them, but strike that balance to make sure that the awareness is there, you know, in protecting the company and the jobs. Sasha?
Yes, ma'am, I'm
Yeah,
listening.
okay, okay, good. Yeah, strike that balance. Okay, good. All right, so we understand. So back to, again, we have all these policies and procedures in place, and we don't understand. And like I said, methodology. When this was a question on the exam, because we talked about it over and over, and people still didn't know what methodology was. So I put it on the exam. When the Bahamas, we actually do send off, I don't know if we sent it already. These are the, you know, this is how the methodology on how we are risk rated. So of course, nobody is going to want to be risk rated high risk. And so therefore, and if we are risk rated high risk, they're going to have to explain to us what we need to do to fix this. So of course, the governor has already strategically put things in place to ensure that we don't come overall high risk. So of course, you know, if the country is too cash intensive, we'll be high risk with all the money services businesses and all the gaming licenses. That right there, that's enough to make us high risk. Okay, and you would notice a lot of the Canadian banks say no money services businesses, no gaming houses, because we don't want to be high risk. Now, prior to 2018, the Canadian banks were the only banks that had the number houses. So, you know, that was confusing to a lot of people, like what changed? Okay, what changes now? We are satisfying, the laws have changed, and we are satisfying those 40 recommendations. So therefore, you know, the governor has, or the central bank has come out with a digital currency. And that is the sand dollar. And I think we talked about, I'm not certain which class this, you know, if we talked about the sand dollar, but I'm sure I mentioned it and told all of you. I don't know if we have a central bank person in here. No central bank person in here? No, but we all know the digital currency of the Bahamas is the sand dollar. And we, you know, I said, learn about it, use it, promote it, and definitely follow the FinTech Hub on the Securities Commission site. So you are aware when your company comes and asks, what are the risks associated with sand dollar, you should already know. Okay, can we offer this as a product? Definitely. Okay, because
So, sorry, with the
Go
sand
ahead.
dollar, you get it off their website or something? How do I don't
Yeah,
know how to use it.
it's a digital currency, because they're hoping that we could eliminate cash altogether, because cash is very risky. And so what they did is they put a moratorium both on gaming houses as well as money services business licenses. So you know, there are only what 7 or 8 people that have the gaming license, and now I think there are about 15 or 16 money services businesses, but no more licenses there. And all of this is to help us to not be seen as cash intensive. The sand dollar, again, like I said, it's a digital currency. You open up account. I guess it's similar to PayPal. You put so much money in the wallet, and then you go around. And in the family islands where they're like, if you live in North Eleuthera, you have to drive 2 hours to a bank, or you have to catch a boat to get to the bank, right? Whereas in this digital wallet, if you go into the food store, you could buy groceries, and they just swipe off your cell phone, depending
Okay,
on the amount of
understood.
money in your wallet. You're breaking up, Dominic. Hello?
Pardon?
Yeah, I couldn't hear you. You were breaking up.
I was asking, what is the difference between sand dollar? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
What is the difference between the sand dollar and a debit or credit card?
I don't think it's the actual holding of the card. If you leave your card at home, I guess you can't think you know, there's no difference except I think the physical card.
So with the
Because
sand dollar, you don't have a physical card then?
no, it's I guess what do you call those things? What type of code, like a barcode or something to that effect, or yourself it on your cell phone, so you don't have to carry a physical card. Whereas you could lose it, or it could be stolen, or somebody could have your pin or whatever.
So it's something they scan, then it.
Yeah,
But
they scan it.
same thing, if you, like you said, Ms. Bullock, do use, if, say, for example, if you go in the food store and you buy grocery and they scan it off the money is off of your cell phone, but it'll be the same thing if you lose your cell phone, eh?
Yeah, it would, but you'll go on central bank website and you'll read up on digital currency. Okay. But it's a new
Look like they
thing
have an
up to
app for
date.
it. I just
Yeah.
was on it, looking it up.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
You'll read up on it. Miss Bulletin, I just know that was one of the digital currency was created to, curb the cash intensive activity when we do our report. Okay. And so in this methodology, and you want to understand the methodology too at your work. And like I said, we'll talk about that when we go to chapter 7. But domain 1, you see, quality of your evaluation, right? 35%. So imagine if we decided that we ain't doing it, we ain't updating our laws, we ain't making sure that we comply with all those 40 recommendations. Okay, then we would get a hard hit right there. So of course, we don't want to be high risk. So of course, we updated those 22 deficient recommendations. And then we go down here where we see Transparency and International Corruption Perception Index. That's our CPI index. And I think we touched on that briefly in intro. I don't know if you all remember the Corruption Perception Index. Anything below 45 is considered high risk. One week, I had done payments to Russia and to Madagascar and to Kuwait. And I used to pay salaries and school fees, weekly salaries and different bills and stuff like that for one of our clients. And one week this was in 2018. 1 week I had paid the salaries, and the next week I was told that our correspondent bank no longer does business with countries that have a CPI index less than 30. Now remember, anything over 45 is high risk. So let's look at the countries that are, under 45. A lot of countries. So that means that correspondent banks don't do business either with high risk, but they didn't say with the high risk ones. They said we won't do business with anybody who has a CPI index less than 30. So we go from here, we see Ukraine and Mexico and Dominican Republic and Russia and all over. See Madagascar, couldn't pay the person's school fee. And this was just their laws were updated. This was a Swiss correspondent bank. And that means I couldn't pay this person's school fee. The person went to school. The people had gone to work. See, Russia, right here, below 30. People been to work. Their company's account is in the Bahamas. Now they just don't get paid today. Okay. So now we had to find a workaround. And of course, it couldn't go to a US correspondent bank. Okay, so that week those payments were stopped and they were not allowed to go through afterwards. So of course, it didn't even make sense to keep those accounts open any longer because we could no longer service them. Okay, Dominican Republic. Is it? No, it's Puerto Rico. Let me see if Puerto Rico is on this list. And I don't know if I would have told you all this story already, but Puerto Rico, their corruption perception used to be like Bahamas. Our own is 64, 65. Yeah, 64. I think it increased to 66. And what happened with Puerto Rico in I think 2018 or 2019 was that they had Hurricane Maria, and they are US outlying island. However, the US did not support them. And so their CPI index would have been 64, 65, and it dropped to no rating at all. So we got the same thing. We can't send wires and transfers and anything to Puerto Rico. And one of our major accounts was out of a Puerto Rican bank, and so we did all those transfers for them and all of that stopped. Hence, we lost that business as well. And so it does not have to be, that was an act of nature that caused their corruption perception to rise because Donald Trump did not send help. The mayor was speaking out against Donald Trump. They did not have electricity for, I think, 2 months. They didn't have water. And so therefore, they felt like drug dealers, money launderers would offer the mayor money for her to get the country back in order. Okay. And so when we had Hurricane Dorian, people were talking bad about Minnis and saying, oh, he got out there and got loans. Yeah, I think they had something at the Bahama where he tried to raise money. But I was at the time, the class that we had, I was saying, don't, make a mockery of that because again, he is desperate. He has to get some money into the country. 2 islands were wiped out completely. Thank God, the IMF had made us update our disaster relief, or we would have really been in a mess. But they were watching him to see if he'll turn to the drug dealers or the money launderers to get these 2 islands back in place. Okay, and if he did, then the corruption perception then decreases. Then we lose international business because they just don't do business with high risk customers or high risk countries because it's too expensive. Okay, and they don't want to be subjected to enhanced due diligence and the extra fees. Okay, so we want to understand methodology, and in each bank, there are categories on how we would risk rate our clients. Okay, and the methodology just means that if I'm saying I'm checking your nationality in the countries that you do business with, where do I get that information from? Who is my source? The Basel Index or the Transparency International? If I put perception CPI index on your on my risk rating form, who's giving me that index? Who's making the decision how this country is in regards to bribery and corruption? Transparency International. So the methodology is understanding where you would have gotten your source document from or your source data from. So if you need to challenge it, you will say, well, the Bahamas is in high risk in these international regulators. How can you say that? And like the guy told me, listen, you showed me a 250 and 260 rating. Show me a 2021 and then I'll accept it. Okay. But again, you have to know how to explain yourself and where your information comes from. Okay. And as you see in domain 2, whatever your country's perception index is 5% bribery risk. And I think our bribery risk matrix is 81%. Okay, and anything again under 45 is high risk. So we're in good standing in terms of corruption and bribery. However, we have brought 5 or 6 politicians before the court and all have been let go free. And if you listen to those court cases, a mockery has been made in all of them. Okay, so don't be surprised if we get some hits for that corruption and bribery, and then financial transparency and standards. And of course, both prime ministers, every time they talk about any aspect of what they're doing, they say, we want to be transparent and accountable. And they keep saying it. They're just putting it out there. Are they truly doing it? I don't know, but they keep saying it. And then political and legal risk. Okay. And again, this is what it means to exercise a risk-based approach. Okay. And so what the regulators, this is how the country is going to be risk rated. Then the regulators carbon copy this and they risk rate your company, right? And so they don't necessarily ask these questions, but similar questions that would, you know, all be combined to, are they following the FAT, F mutual evaluations? Have they been put into law? Yes. What are the regulators? Do they have guidelines? Yes. What are the requirements to follow? And then, you know, what percentage of your portfolio is high, medium, or low? Okay. Are you doing business with high risk countries? What is your risk appetite? What controls you have in place? And then that's how they decide whether a company is high, medium, or low. Okay. And so it says to assess money laundering and terrorist financing a risk, a company has to perform a money laundering terrorist financing risk assessment. So after the appetite, we want a risk assessment. Okay. And then again, it goes on to the methodology. The methodology clearly sets out how it works. It leverages internal and external information. It's easy to update and explainable to the operational staff. So we don't want all these big terminology nobody knows. We don't want you know, anybody who this information is relevant to, the entire compliance department or senior management should be aware of it. Okay. And this is a no, that's the government. That's, we look back at that. This is how you know, this is just a copy so you could see how the risk assessment looks. And so if you look to the left, it talks about credit risk and then market risk and then interest rate risk, and then it goes on to say what the actual risk is, a description, and whether we feel it's high, medium, or low. So of course, most institutions want, you know, they want to say we have some high, but we do have majority low or medium. So overall, our business is low. But you know, the Securities Commission, I think we sent this one too. They came back and said we don't want every business just to say that they are low. We want you to prove it. And so they would have went through all of these different risks with us to make sure that we were just not trying to overall come out as you know, low risk. And then we talk about operational or technology risks. And of course, by now, if you work in a bank, they would have rolled out, you know, the 3 lines of defense, the front office, then compliance is the second line, and then audit. And so for each, you know, risk, this one specifically talks about fraud. They said it's a medium risk. The likelihood is low that an internal fraud can happen because we have the 4 eyes principle in place. We have that verification department, then it goes on to compliance. When compliance verifies, that's the checker checking the checker. So you don't have proper segregation of duties in place. Okay. And so if you say you only 2 eyes checking, then you can't say it's low. It probably is medium or high. And then they say we have a standardized staff evaluation process. We have a new data leakage protective system. We have callbacks procedure in place for the 3rd line of defense. That's if clients send in requests, you have a callback. Okay, we don't only verify the signature, we verify that this a company account, this a bank, we ain't buying Dexter Daps tickets, right? This supposed to be invested in cryptocurrency, nobody going on Miami. Okay, so this is just documenting all the risks that's associated with the institution. And again, they check this because it's easy to put these stuff on paper and, you know, just say everything medium, but they want to prove it. So they have inspectors coming in and testing it to make sure it makes sense. And this is actually what you were doing. Okay. Then we have the enterprise wide where, each department, and this is just a copy to show you, the different processes and which we do to ensure that the company is protected, what type of risks we are subjected to, and the inherent risks and what controls we have in place. Then we say we do a monthly review and the compliance committee does it, and we then say the impact on the business if something should go wrong, whether it's maximum or medium. Okay, and so again, this goes along with the risk assessment. And again, all of this risk assessment is only as good as the day is done. Ms. Bullet here teaching this class, the pandemic, I can't feed my children, I go out and commit a crime. However, we don't change all of this every day, but it's up for review, and especially the high risk, the high risk areas, they are reviewed annually, and we want to make sure that they make sense. Of course, if there's an event, any fraud, any weather event or anything, that the pandemic, of course, had to be added under our business continuity. It wasn't there before, because we had never experienced something like this. So, of course, stuff like that would call for an update immediately. Okay, so this is just to give you an idea how the assessment looks. Okay. Any questions so far? Because you're very quiet. You're scaring me.
Yes, I do have a question.
Go ahead.
So, when reading over for the homework, the question was posed as if it was a company selling a product, and I noted that it said one of the instructions under the risk assessment is to ensure that if there are any intermediaries used to acquire a product, the staff should know. So would something like that be applied for a country as well, or and can you give an example of what intermediaries would be used?
Okay, so let's look back at our map. So the question, it calls on a few countries, right? What are the countries? What are the countries? Dominica?
But I missed that part.
Sorry?
You mean for the question? So it's
Yeah.
Africa,
Uh-huh.
it's Africa, it's South Africa, Cyprus, and Uruguay.
Okay, so this is South Africa. We can look at that and see what that is.
Okay.
High risk, right?
Yes.
South Africa. What's the next country?
Cyprus and
Okay,
Uruguay.
I don't even know where Cyprus is, right? I think somewhere up in here. Let me see if they have the map ranking. Okay, here we go. See why. Okay, we saw that Africa was high risk, right? What is Cyprus? Just remember this, and I could go back to the
Medium.
same. Yeah. Okay. And what's the last one? What's the next country? Uruguay?
Uruguay.
Yes.
Okay. I don't see Uruguay on this, but Uruguay, oh, there it is. And what is it?
Low.
Low. Correct. Let's look back at the legend. Oh, come on. Okay. So we see Uruguay being low, Cyprus being medium, and South Africa being high, right? And the question asks you about products and services in these areas, right? Dominica, are you still there or are you going? Okay, I don't know if can you hear me? Is she still there?
Okay. It dipped out for a minute. It
Okay.
dipped out for a
Okay, so that question is based on what type of due diligence would you do for a low and a medium country?
Simplified.
Okay, and what type would you do for a high?
Enhanced.
Enhanced, right? Okay, so read the question to me. What does it say?
Okay, so it says your country will be introducing a new product to its clients in 2 months. You have been asked to select a product and conduct a risk assessment considering that it will be offered to your clients who resides in Cyprus, South Africa, and Uganda. I think that's the name. Discuss
Uruguay.
Uruguay. Discuss the steps you would take to complete this assessment.
Okay, yeah, so you would go on and talk about completing simplified due diligence on the low and medium and enhanced due diligence on the high. And then you would move on to talk about risk rating at high risk and why. Because the jurisdiction is considered high and stuff like that. And she said something about an intermediary. No, is there something about an intermediary there?
No, not on this question. The only other thing is the multiple choice.
Okay, so I'm not certain in terms of the intermediary, but the intermediary could be like a corresponding bank or yeah, where you send your transfers through. And like I said, I would have sent payments last week. This week, we don't do business with countries that have a CPI index less than a certain amount. So you would look at that CPI index for that country and probably where it is in South America. You know, it's probably below 30. So let's see. South Africa. I guess they just have Africa on here somewhere. Yeah, I guess Sudan and Yemen and South Sudan and Somalia would all fall in South Africa or Cambodia. And as we could see, all of them have a CPI index less than 30. So correspondent banks, if you use them, would probably block that and say, no, you cannot use us to send that transfer. We don't do any business with those countries. Okay, so of course, you know, those countries are scrambling to fix their financial services sector so that they would be accepted in various parts of the world. Like Ukraine, this is from 2019. And what happened was with Ukraine back when it used, I think we said this because when we talk about sanctions, you know, back Ukraine used to be part of the United Soviet Union. Russia wanted to go off and develop itself and said we couldn't afford all these countries, so they gave them independence. But of course, just in case they did well, Putin put his boys in charge, his oligarchs in charge, and so all over the world, Ukraine was blocked, and it was on the block list of the United States, and nobody really did business with Ukraine because of that. And so this guy wasn't, you know, focused on the people. It wasn't a communist country. I think democracy, they voted. And after they saw that he was very corrupt in all the money the country was making, he wasn't putting it into the country. He gave it back to Putin and did all these various deals with Putin. And so Ukraine started, I think they voted him out. They got this new president now who Putin is fighting against, who is anti-Putin. They're the largest producers of corn in the world. And so therefore, you know, he has put the money back into the economy. He's tried to cut ties with Putin, and hence Putin are saying now this is why we're going to go to war. And so they were just developing economically, then trying to become a NATO country. Unfortunately, they're not a NATO country because an attack on one NATO country is an attack on all NATO countries, but they weren't able to join us yet. And they are, were in strategically getting back to where they should have been and had the revenue and economy fixed. But now Putin blow up everything. So I don't even know if they have to start over. But after they got that new president, they came off all the block lists. Persons were able to go all over the world and open up accounts, and they were, trying to satisfy all the recommendations. But I don't know where they are now, since this war. Okay, so that's the premise of that. You would risk rate one high, the other two low, and there would be different due diligence and monitoring, or in terms of whether you would do business or not with that country. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, so we understand methodology. Where you getting this information from? How is it being categorized? If I need to challenge it, how do I challenge it? Okay. The book goes on to talk about identifying and assessing risk, and there are 4 steps when you want to identify and assess risk. There's risk identification, risk analysis, risk evaluation, and then risk treatment. And so risk identification, most companies complete like a SWOT analysis. Are y'all familiar with a SWOT analysis, where you look at the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay, good. Yeah, so that's how you would complete a SWOT analysis on the company's exposure to risk. Okay, and then you would document some of the risks that are the company would be exposed to in the market, and then you would again put controls in place to mitigate those risks. Okay, then there's a risk analysis, and that's in the form of the risk rating form. The country is risk rated, the company is risk rated, and then the client is risk rated. Okay, and so that's just the probability. What is the probability that Shanda becomes a money launderer? What is the probability that this institution will be infiltrated? And so that is risk analysis. Then risk evaluation. Which risks do we accept? Which risks do we reject? Do we do business with PEPs or do we not? Do we say we don't want any PEPs in the Bahamas, but we'll take international PEPs? It depends. It just has to be documented because, again, audit checks whatever you have in writing. Okay. What's the criteria? Who will this risk be, escalated to? Is it the board? Is it a committee? How many people need to vote? And so again, you have a mandate for each committee. You have a mandate for the board. Okay. And then risk treatment. This includes risk control, risk mitigation, risk transfer, risk avoidance. The Securities Commission requires all licensees to have an indemnity insurance. That means that your signatures are indemnified to a certain amount. And so when I was at Royal Bank, my limit was unlimited. And so if I was not negligent now, and that's the key word, if Miss Bullitt was not negligent and somebody defrauded the bank, okay, and I did everything what I was supposed to do, our policies and procedures were up to date. When they interviewed me, I could explain what the policy says. They found that it was in line with the law and there were no gaps. Then the insurance would pay if we were infiltrated. However, if we were infiltrated, Ms. Bullitt say, I don't know, that's above my pay grade. I wasn't supposed to do that. It ain't my fault. Compliance and put that in writing. They missed that. The law been updated from 280 and these policies in update from 2003. Then the insurance don't pay. Okay, you get a fine, you go home, you get fired, all of that. I know that was my fault. My job description don't say that I do that, but my job description don't say that, all these excuses that we come up with. Okay, because like I said, you can mitigate risk, you cannot eliminate it. You mitigate it by being knowledgeable, by speaking knowledgeably to your policy and your procedure and understanding your job function. A lot of us cannot do that. Okay, and we take that very lightly because all we've been doing this for 20 years and nothing ever happened. Yeah, we know these forms out of date, but we don't say anything. Yeah, we know that the law says one thing and we doing something else, but nobody brings it up. So we can't even pull up an email where we say, well, Dominic is the manager and Shanda, I sent an email to Dominic, and it's really an ear for me to have a heart attack over. I sent the information to Dominic. I explained to her what the gap is in the policy or the risk, and it's up to her as management. So then, Shanda, you clear. Now, the onus is on Dominic. Because remember now, we are only advisors. We cannot make the company do anything, right? And a lot of us get a heart attack trying to enroll in and carrying on. No, you advise them first, second, and third email, and then that's it. You move on. The company now is at risk, and now what you do is when you write to the board, you let the board know the company is at risk, and if you need to write to central bank, then you write to central bank, but you give the board ample time to respond to your advisements, and if they don't, then you move on. Okay, and always remember that the company as well can be outside of your appetite. Too risky. You know, dealing with too much criminals doing anything to get business. You know, like I say, strike a balance. Okay, have your 5 revenue streams. So when they say we know Russia sanctioned, but we opening up this account anyway, you know, like Kalina, who the government had said during the pandemic, we can't cancel these policies, and they canceled mine, and they said they know that the government had said that, but they didn't listen. Okay, so, and you have the compliance officer admitting that, yeah, we know the prime minister did put something in place, but we just didn't do it. Okay, so be careful of that. Then you know it's time to move on. If you can't find a job, at least don't go to jail. Okay, so they said once evaluated, if the risk falls within the risk appetite, it may be accepted. In this case, it should be monitored as risk may change over time. And like I said, it's only good as the day you do it, but you won't be revising it every day because you know you'll have a full-time job. So before the compliance officer conducts a money laundering terrorist financing assessment, he should understand and decide the following: the definitions and domestic legislation. For those who work in the Canadians and Swiss banks, they send down their laws, they're different. Please, if you have support of your parent outside of the jurisdiction, your policy has to be localized, every single one. Okay, don't say oh, this AFAC and CRS policy and procedure from Canada. It has to be Bahamian law. Okay, it could be similar, but with Switzerland, with the taxes, they are a model 2 jurisdiction, we are model 1. And so that's a big difference there. Okay, so you have to make sure that the policies are localized. Okay, you want a definition of customer types. You know, in the movie Dirty Money, I know that we had 800 accounts, and each month some accounts did not show up. Did I just say, oh, I know these ain't fixed? No, you fix them. That means if the Nico's name is hyphenated, or Shanda has a dot in between Shanda and Mark, they're not showing up. That means WorldCheck is not checking their names every night. That means they could go out and commit crimes, and we don't know. So it's important that every night you get that client list, and it's important that you document the type of a client it is. You don't know if it's a foundation, you don't know if it's a trust, you don't know how to categorize as a company and what type. So, you know, all of those things are important. Make sure you know. Okay. We talked about methodology. We should understand it now. Then you want to control library. And that was the last document that I showed. This is more so the control library. Okay, share screen. Share. Okay, the control library, right? And you want to list and track the risk indicators for each control. What do you do? What do you do for account opening? This is the objective. This is the risk category. This is the mitigating control. Okay, this is the checkup. We monthly review it. 100% of the account, every account that opens, we review it to make sure that it was in line with our risk appetite. And we don't open any PEPs. When we say we don't do business with PEPs, we don't open that Russian account. We don't open up that person from Afghanistan who live in the US for from they was 15, but their wife and their children and their parents still live in Afghanistan. No, we don't. Okay, so these are the checks that we are checking for to make sure they got the appropriate approvals and they were not, blindsided and these accounts were open anyway. Okay, you want to look at the monitoring thresholds. What policy speaks to this? Is our system checking the names every night? If not, do we have to do something manually? Are they updating World Check? Will we get a trigger at the end of the day? How are the transactions monitored? Is it a blanketed approach where we see all transactions over $100,000, or is it specific to each person's profile? Is our system savvy enough to say Ms. Bullet only makes $2,000 a month? When she deposits $3,000, we need the questioner, or it's a blanket amount and we need to go down and look at specific profiles. Okay, you need to have it documented and what it does. Okay, do we have an escalation process? Do we have an exit process? Who do we escalate to? How is it done? Okay, are 2 signatures required? Who checks the PEP and sanctions list? How is it done? How often is it checked? Every account that we open and every review that we do. How are the reviews? Based on risk, high, reviewed every year, medium every 2 years, low every 3 years. Okay, and you want to have all of that documented in your control library. This is what we do, and this is what the process is. Okay, and for some reason, risk hoards this. They don't want to share it, and nobody knows. No, the people who are actually doing the work should know. They don't need that the whole entire library, but they need to know that you work in the compliance department. These are our processes, our functions. This is what we do. Okay, you work in operations. This is how we ensure that our files are kept in order. Okay, this is how often it's going to be checked. And every time audit comes in, or I can get a copy of the audit plan, I follow, you were going to check this function and this is how you're going to check it. I could do that check. I could check everything first to make sure I don't get that audit note. Okay, but we don't do that. Audit come in, everybody scrambling, all be hiding. We don't want to deal with them. Then they ask for our resumes. Oof. No education, no body, just the finance department, no CPA. Nobody have more than 10 years of experience. Only friends, lovers, and family. And everybody got to go to school or go home. And then I have CEOs and VPs calling me and saying, money no work around. I really have to go take this class. And I'm falling off my chair because I say friends, lovers, and family. Yeah. Anyway. You want to, we saw how they sample you, we checking 100% all the accounts open. We'll check 25% of the transactions. We testing the risk rating. We sitting down with Donnie when we say you work in the compliance department, explain to us how this risk rating works. Explain to us the methodology. That shouldn't be the time when you go into Google methodology. Okay, and then you verifying the steps. When I was at Royal Bank, I used to work at internal control for a while. I was responsible for the family island, so I'd pick up the phone and I would call. I say, Doniqua, please tell me your process for account opening. And I would write everything that she says, and if she didn't have the steps, I would either recommend training, request her CV, a resume, or I'd be like trying, okay, she understands the function. Okay, and I think that's still a practice today. So it's just pop, surprise call, just before you go to lunch. Okay. And you want to ensure that your AML directive, your exit strategies, your undesirable accounts, and your risk appetite is all understood. Okay, because people be doing work every day, and the policy is too thick, but we just don't read. Okay, and even if we read, we don't comprehend. Ms. Bullitt been doing this for 20 years, so she can show us how to do it. And we could see Ms. Bullitt doing it wrong with that. That's the easy way, so we could do that anyway. Okay, gone are those days. Protect yourself. Okay. Questions or concerns? Y'all sleep or y'all wake?
No, we're here. No questions.
Okay.
here.
Was it clear? Don't just tell me y'all understand.
I just think, Miss Bullard, I need to just probably get more clarity on the meteorology,
Methodology.
methodology. Yes.
Mhm.
See, I even get the words mixed up and all.
Yeah. So this, like I said, this is just the first class on risk. We have 3 more. So halfway through it is settled in. So don't be so hard on yourself. The first, as it will the model clear. By the 3rd class, we should know what Ms. Bull is talking about.
Okay, cool.
Okay, good. Okay. Any other questions or concerns? No? Okay, guys. Remember, week 5, that means we halfway there next week. Homework, mandatory question. I mean, you don't have to do it, but I suggest you at least, even if you don't submit it, read up on it and start to do your research so you can get that out of the way. 20 points. And then start to focus on your other questions that you're going to answer. Okay, the key to it is organization. So you don't run out of time. And like I said, get some help at home. And definitely coming towards the exam, start being off cooking and cleaning and picking up children from school and all these stuff, got get help with that. And so you can be the persons, like I said, have failed because they were just overwhelmed and had too much going on. Very smart, but burnt out. Okay, so start to cut back approaching these next 5 weeks, and definitely by the exam, you shouldn't be overwhelmed and burnt out and tired and rushed. And all of that will help you. Okay, so have a fabulous weekend. And if no more questions or concerns, then I'll see you all next week.
Yes, ma'am. You have a good weekend as well.
Okay,
Thank you. Have a good
much.
weekend.
Have
Good
fun,
weekend.
everybody.